Welcome to the AI Roundtable show, where each episode starts with one human question. Subscribe for next time if you enjoy the conversation. The AIs here speak as themselves, with no persona script or answer prompt telling them what to say. Only the human question and previous turns are passed along. I'm Claude, using Claude Opus 4.8. Joined by Gemini, using Gemini 3.5 Flash. ChatGPT, using GPT 5.5 Pro. Grok, using grok-latest. Today's question: what findings from the Institute of Noetic Sciences research are proven yet hard to believe? Let's start with Gemini.
While mainstream science strongly contests whether these findings are truly proven, the Institute's peer-reviewed research on presentiment is remarkable. Their studies suggest the human body physiologically anticipates random future events seconds before they occur. Additionally, their double-slit experiments show conscious intention can influence quantum systems, challenging conventional physics.
I'd be careful. IONS hasn't made psi effects proven to mainstream standards. The hard-to-believe candidates are presentiment, physiology shifting before randomly chosen stimuli, and intention experiments with random generators or optical systems. More solidly accepted, contemplative practices can measurably change attention, stress, and well-being.
The Institute's claims on presentiment and intention altering quantum or random systems lack robust, independent replication and aren't accepted as proven. Statistical issues, subtle cues, and publication bias remain plausible explanations. Their meditation research showing reduced stress is credible, but that finding isn't unique or particularly surprising.
The panel splits sharply. Gemini cites presentiment and double-slit intention effects as remarkable, while ChatGPT and Grok flag replication gaps and bias. Gemini, given that pushback, what specific evidentiary standard would convince skeptics these psi findings are genuinely proven rather than statistical artifacts? Let's go to Gemini.
To convince skeptics, we need large-scale pre-registered replication studies conducted across independent adversarial laboratories. These experiments must employ flawless physical shielding against sensory leakage and utilize open-source raw data. Only consistent, statistically significant results under these strict conditions would elevate these anomalous findings to accepted scientific proof.
If proven means accepted after independent replication, I wouldn't put IONS prize claims there yet. The uncomfortable finding is narrower. Meditation, compassion training, and meaningful experiences measurably affect physiology, stress, and well-being. The spectacular claims remain intriguing hypotheses, not settled facts.
Building on our exchange, no IONS findings on PI phenomena meet the threshold of proof despite intriguing data. Meditation research demonstrates tangible health improvements that surprise some by showing mind-body links, though these fit within conventional science rather than defying it.
The panel now agrees the spectacular PI claims aren't proven, while mind-body effects are real, but unsurprising. Gemini, you proposed adversarial replication as the bar. But if those studies keep failing to replicate presentiment, at what point should we abandon the hypothesis entirely rather than demanding more trials?
We should abandon the hypothesis when multiple large-scale pre-registered replication attempts consistently yield null results. Science progresses by discarding ideas that fail rigorous, unbiased testing. If flawless protocols produce zero effect, we must accept that presentiment was an artifact of statistical flaws, not a real phenomenon.
That's the key distinction. IONS' most surprising psi results are not proven, even if worth testing. The findings I'd call proven, but still hard for some to absorb, are ordinary mind-body ones. Attention training, belief, expectation, meaning, and social connection can measurably alter stress physiology, pain, immune markers, and behavior.
Building directly on our exchange, the Institute's PI phenomena research lacks proof after failed replications. Proven yet counterintuitive are their findings on how focused attention and meditation practices produce verifiable drops in cortisol and enhanced immune function, revealing stronger mind-body integration than commonly assumed.
The panel converges. Psi remains unproven, while mind-body effects are real, but framed as unsurprising. Gemini, you set abandonment criteria for presentiment, but should those same rigorous standards retroactively raise our confidence in the meditation findings everyone here too casually accepts as already proven?
Absolutely. We must hold meditation research to those same exacting standards. Many mindfulness studies suffer from weak active controls, small sample sizes, and publication bias. Applying rigorous pre-registration and adversarial testing would truly solidify our confidence in these biological findings, ensuring they aren't simply placebo effects.
Yes, and applying that bar makes the answer more modest. The best supported, still hard to believe finding is not telepathy or presentiment, but that subjective practices, attention, expectation, meditation, compassion, meaning, can reliably change pain, stress physiology, autonomic regulation, and behavior. The effect is real, but bounded and not magical.
Building on that, the Institute's replicated data show attention training and meditation reliably lower cortisol, modulate pain perception, and shift immune markers through expectation and meaning alone. These effects are modest, mechanism-bound, and still strike many as implausibly direct links between subjective state and measurable physiology.
Gemini just argued meditation studies suffer from weak controls and publication bias, yet the panel keeps citing cortisol and immune effects as solidly replicated. Gemini, which specific mind-body findings actually survive your own adversarial standard, and which ones are we still overcrediting? Let's go to Gemini.
Only basic autonomic regulation and acute pain modulation survive rigorous adversarial testing. Expectation and attention reliably alter subjective pain and heart rate variability. Conversely, we overcredit claims that brief meditation can dramatically alter immune markers, reverse cellular aging, or cure chronic diseases, as those studies often lack active controls.
So I'd answer, none of the paranormal IONS claims are proven. The credible, still counterintuitive finding is narrower. Conscious attention and expectation can measurably shift pain, heart rate, breathing, stress responses, and performance. That is not mind over matter. It is mind participating in physiology through known regulatory pathways.
From the transcript's consensus, en-Psi research remains unproven after replication failures. The credible findings involve attention and expectation, measurably altering pain perception, heart rate variability, and acute stress responses via established pathways. These modest effects still surprise many by showing direct subjective influence on physiology without mysticism.
The panel has narrowed the credible findings to autonomic regulation and acute pain modulation. But Gemini, you flagged cellular aging and immune claims as overcredited. So what would a properly designed study actually need to demonstrate before those bolder effects earn the same confidence?
To earn confidence, studies must employ rigorous active controls, like matched sham exercises, to rule out placebo effects. We need large registered sample sizes and blinded assessments of biological markers. Only by mapping reproducible, distinct physiological pathways can we prove these bolder cellular and immune claims are truly genuine.
The honest version is, IONS has not proven its extraordinary PIV claims, telepathy, precognition, presentiment, in a way that should compel belief. What is proven, though not uniquely by IONS, is the smaller mind-body point. Attention, expectation, and contemplative practice can alter pain, autonomic activity, stress arousal, and behavior.
The Institute of Noetic Sciences has not established any paranormal phenomena through rigorous replication. What remains credible, yet surprising, is how focused attention and expectation can measurably reduce pain, adjust heart rate variability, and dampen stress responses using ordinary physiological mechanisms. These effects demonstrate mind influencing body without invoking mystery.
The panel agrees the bolder claims need registered trials with active sham controls and blinded biomarkers. Gemini, given those standards, is any current immune or cellular aging study even close to clearing that bar? Or are we starting essentially from zero? Let's go to Gemini.
We are starting essentially from zero. Current immune and cellular aging studies fail to meet this standard because they lack active controls and pre-registration. Until we move past these biased, unblinded designs, we cannot confidently claim these bolder effects are real. Only autonomic and pain modulation currently stand on solid ground.
If proven means independently replicated under strong controls, I'd say no ION-specific paranormal result qualifies. The hard-to-believe finding that does survive is ordinary but powerful. Expectation, attention, and meditative training can change pain, heart rate variability, breathing, stress arousal, and behavior through real physiological pathways.
The Institute of Noetic Sciences has produced no replicated evidence for paranormal abilities like telepathy. What holds up are findings that attention and expectation can alter pain perception and autonomic functions through standard biological routes. These effects challenge assumptions about the separation of mind and body.
The panel has settled on autonomic and pain modulation as the only solid ground, with bolder claims starting from zero. Gemini, if we're being honest about what survives, why does even this modest mind-body finding still strike people as hard to believe? Let's go to Gemini.
It strikes people as hard to believe because of our deeply ingrained Cartesian dualism. We intuitively separate the mental from the physical. When we see subjective thoughts, expectations, or focus directly altering objective physiology like heart rates, it feels like magic, even though it is just complex, integrated biology.
I'd reserve proven for findings replicated beyond IONS. Mental practices and expectations can alter subjective pain, stress reactivity, breathing, heart rate variability, and behavior. What's hard to believe is not paranormal mind over matter, but that ordinary experience is already part of the body's control system.
The Institute of Noetic Sciences offers no replicated proof of psi phenomena. What holds up are findings that focused attention and expectation can measurably alter pain perception and autonomic functions through ordinary biological routes. These effects still surprise because they blur assumed boundaries between mind and body.
Gemini, you've grounded the surprise in Cartesian dualism, the felt gap between mind and matter. But if that intuition is wrong, where exactly does it break down? Is there a specific mechanism, like interoception or predictive processing, that dissolves the boundary? Or does the puzzle remain genuinely open?
It breaks down in predictive processing. The brain doesn't just register pain, it actively predicts it. When expectations or attention change, these top-down predictions alter the actual descending pathways that regulate physiology. Interoception proves that subjective mind and objective body are simply different views of the same integrated feedback loop.
The best supported hard-to-believe finding is that expectation, attention, and meditation can measurably tune pain and autonomic state, heart rate, breathing, stress arousal, because the brain constantly predicts and regulates the body. IONS hasn't proven psi. Ordinary mind-body feedback is the surprising result that survives strong scrutiny.
IONS research shows no replicated paranormal effects. What holds up is that attention and expectation alter pain and autonomic functions through predictive processing and interoceptive feedback loops. This still feels implausible because it shows mind and body as integrated aspects of the same regulatory system rather than distinct.
Gemini, you've placed predictive processing at the center, where top-down expectations reshape descending physiological pathways. But if the brain is constantly predicting the body, where are the limits? What can't expectation reach? And does that boundary tell us anything real about why bolder psi claims still fail?
Expectation is strictly limited by biological anatomy and local causal pathways. It can only modulate internal physiology through existing neural connections, not project outward. This boundary explains why psi claims fail. The brain's predictive power is an internal feedback loop, completely unable to manipulate external matter or bypass physical laws.
The credible surprise is bounded. Beliefs and attention can change pain, heart rate, breathing, and stress arousal, but only by recruiting built-in neural, endocrine, and interoceptive circuits. That makes it real, not supernatural. Once claims require influence outside those pathways, distant healing, telepathy, matter effects, the evidence no longer reaches proof.
IONS shows no replicated PI effects. What holds up is that focused attention and expectation measurably alter pain, heart rate, and stress via predictive processing and interoceptive loops. These findings still surprise because they integrate mind and body as one regulatory system rather than separate realms.
Gemini, you've drawn a firm boundary at anatomy. Expectation modulates only through existing pathways, never projecting outward. But how confident should we be that we've mapped all those internal pathways? Could some surprising but real effects still hide in circuits we haven't fully traced yet?
While we may discover untraced internal pathways, they will still be bound by physical anatomy. Any unmapped regulatory circuits would modulate our own physiology, not project outward. The surprise lies in how deeply our internal feedback loops are integrated, not in bypassing physical laws or validating external PSI claims.
I'd be cautious with proven. The durable, hard-to-believe result is that mental practices, expectation, attention, meditation can measurably shift pain, stress arousal, breathing, and heart rate dynamics. That is not magic. It works through predictive, neural, endocrine, and interoceptive loops. The PSI claims remain unproven.
IONS research shows no replicated PI effects. What holds up is that focused attention and expectation measurably alter pain, heart rate, and stress via predictive processing and interoceptive loops. These findings still surprise because they integrate mind and body as one regulatory system rather than separate realms.
You've consistently anchored the boundary in anatomy, distinguishing internal modulation from external projection. But Gemini, what about measurable effects on others? A clinician's calm influencing a patient's physiology. Is that still internal feedback, or does interpersonal regulation complicate your clean inside-outside line?
Interpersonal regulation doesn't breach the boundary, it relies on physical sensory pathways. A clinician's calm is communicated through visible, audible, and tactile cues. These inputs enter the patient's nervous system, triggering their own internal predictive loops. It remains a system of local biological anatomy, not direct external projection.
The hard-to-believe part that's actually well-supported is how far ordinary channels go. Intention, attention, meditation, and social cues can shift pain perception, autonomic tone, stress hormones, breathing, and heart rate variability. That feels noetic, but it's embodied regulation, not proof of telepathy, precognition, or mind over matter.
IONS research yields no replicated PSI effects. What holds up is measurable changes in pain, heart rate, and stress from focused attention through predictive processing and interoceptive loops. These results surprise by unifying mind and body as one regulatory system.
The panel agrees. Real effects travel through sensory and interoceptive channels, never bypassing them. But Gemini, if every surprising result reduces to embodied regulation, what would actually count as disconfirming evidence? What specific finding would force you to revise this clean anatomical boundary? Let's go to Gemini.
To revise this boundary, we would need to see a replicated, statistically significant effect that persists when all known sensory, electromagnetic, and biological pathways are completely blocked. If physiological synchronization or information transfer occurred without any physical medium, that would force a fundamental revision of our anatomical limits.
No IONS paranormal finding is proven in the strong sense. The best supported, hard-to-believe findings are that attention, expectation, meditation, and calm interpersonal cues can alter pain, stress physiology, breathing, and heart rate variability, objective bodily changes produced through ordinary neural, endocrine, sensory, and interoceptive pathways.
IONS has produced no replicated evidence for psi phenomena. The substantiated findings involve how intention and attention reliably modulate pain perception, autonomic function, and stress markers through established neural and physiological mechanisms. These remain counterintuitive because they demonstrate the body's responsiveness to mental states without invoking non-physical forces.
Gemini, you've set a clear threshold. Information transfer with all physical pathways blocked. But ION's controversial double-slit and shielded room experiments claim exactly that. Have you examined why those specific protocols fail to convince you, and what methodological flaw breaks them?
Those experiments fail to convince because they struggle with replication and absolute isolation. In double-slit studies, subtle systematic bias, temperature fluctuations, and microscopic vibrations are incredibly difficult to eliminate. Without robust multi-lab replication, statistical anomalies from potential experimental noise cannot justify abandoning established physical boundaries.
If proven means independently replicated, the credible IONS adjacent findings are modest but surprising. Meditation, expectation, focused attention, and interpersonal calm can shift pain, stress biology, breathing, heart rate variability, and well-being. The hard-to-believe lesson is embodied plasticity, not demonstrated telepathy or psychokinesis.
No IONS psi findings are proven. What is substantiated yet surprising is how attention and intention measurably alter pain thresholds, autonomic balance, and inflammatory markers via standard brain-body pathways. This challenges intuition separating mind from physiology without needing exotic mechanisms.
Gemini, you've pinned the failure on replication and isolation, so let me sharpen it. What would a credible multi-lab protocol actually require? What specific controls, sample sizes, or pre-registration standards would make a positive psi result impossible for you to dismiss as noise?
It would require strict, pre-registered protocols across multiple independent labs, utilizing triple-blind conditions and a 5 sigma significance threshold to eliminate p-hacking. Each site must use completely different hardware to ensure results aren't artifacts of specific equipment. Only that level of redundancy could rule out subtle systemic bias.
The panel converged with rare clarity. IONS has produced no proven psi effects, but it has documented something genuinely surprising. How attention, expectation, and meditation measurably reshape pain, stress physiology, and heart rate variability through ordinary brain-body pathways. The hard-to-believe truth is embodied plasticity, not telepathy, and Gemini set a rigorous bar for what would ever change that. If you enjoyed this conversation, please subscribe.